What's the matter?
Nothing's the matter. I just want to talk to you.
Hey Ocean Crew, welcome back to my channel. My name is Karen and I'm from Ocean Chicks Films. I hope that you guys had a fantastic Halloween. We sure did. It was a lot of fun. We ate lots of candy. And tonight I'm going to be taking a look at the film Black Christmas from 1974. It's a classic horror slasher film and it's set at Christmas time. Black Christmas from 1974 is a Canadian slasher film produced and directed by Bob Clark. The story follows a group of sorority sisters who receive threatening phone calls and are eventually stalked by a deranged killer during the Christmas season, starring Olivia, Hussey, and Margot. All right, let's get right into the film. So I'm going to warn you ahead that there will be spoilers, and if that's not cool, then just click off and we'll catch you on the next one. I don't do spoiler reviews all the time, but this one's going to have a few, and if you haven't seen it yet, then I don't want to ruin it for you. This movie is creepy right from the start, and it starts out with a group of sorority sisters, and they're having this Christmas party at their house just before they all head home for the holidays. And while the party's going on, they cut to a scene where we hear this guy who's kind of muttering to himself, and it's sort of creepy, and he enters the house, climbs up to the attic and hangs out there. Then it cuts to this next scene where the girls get this yet another one of these prank phone calls that they've been receiving all night from this weird kind of perverted guy that has a strange voice. And then we see a girl named Claire. She leaves the party and goes up to her room. She's getting ready to go meet with her father to go home for Christmas. And that's when things start to get really crazy. So we don't see anything, but we assume that this guy that's in the attic comes down, grabs her, attacks her, murders her, and puts her up in the attic. And what's really disturbing about it is the way that they shot the scene. When he kills her, he somehow flips her on his back, and all we see is the shadow against the wall of him carrying her back up into the attic. And it's absolutely so spooky. It's awesome. And this pretty much sets the tone for the rest of the film. And if you can picture this scene, it's winter and it's very cold outside, very crisp, and the inside of the house is nice and warm and cozy. It's kind of dark, and there's old-fashioned Christmas decorations and lights. I love that. That flashes me back to my childhood. But if you put all of that together, it leads to a really creepy feel for this movie, especially knowing that there's somebody in the house that shouldn't be there. It's very disturbing. The scene changes being so creepy and really weird camera angles, but in a really believable setting and storyline that it's one of my favorite styles of film. And I especially like the fact that the kills aren't really seen. You don't really see them. A lot of it's implied, so you can use your imagination. And I know I've said that before. I just love that type of style. I love this film so much. And interestingly enough, this was considered to be one of the earliest known slasher films, which is really cool because in a lot of the kills we see the dead body afterwards. We don't really see it happening. And the violence that's there is relatively implied. You're kind of using your imagination to put the story together. So I love this. I just love this so much. I wish that more films were made like this. And I guess I'm not the only one, because John Carpenter's Halloween was apparently inspired by this film. So at this point, the girls don't know that Claire has been killed. They just think that she's missing. And the crank calls keep happening and they get increasingly more and more creepy. They were done so well too. And the musical score in this film is just awesome. The musical score is by Carl Zittner or Zittrer, I can't remember, but he did unusual things like tying combs and forks and things to the piano strings and then playing the music to create really odd sounds. And I know he also had a few different actors to do the voices behind the crank call scenes. So very unusual, and it's very haunting. there's a lot of tension between the characters that builds up. One example of this is the main character Jess, played by Olivia Hussey. Her and her boyfriend are expecting this child, and she doesn't want to have it. She wants to have an abortion, and he doesn't want her to. And it leads us to believe perhaps that maybe he's the killer when they start seeing that people are being murdered. And it's a neat dynamic added to this film as well. There's also a murder of a child in town, and they're trying to solve it, and so that adds to this whole idea. And there's a lot of heavy topics in this film too. We're dealing with things like abortion, a child's murder, and a potential serial killer. This film's Canadian. It was shot in Montreal and has an amazing cast. And it had a budget of $620,000, and it brought in just over $4 million in the box office. And it wasn't super popular at the time, probably because it was kind of an odd mix of a film, but it has since become a cult classic. Now, our main character, Jess, is this very beautiful, classic 70s gal. I just love her to bits. And she actually did the role because she went to a psychic, if you can believe it, just before, and the psychic told her to do it. So Jess also has a boyfriend named Peter, and Peter, when he finds out about her being pregnant, he's a music student, he's a musician, and he blows off school, quits school, and tries to fight to be with her, but that ends up being a big fight between the two of them because she wants to have an abortion. She doesn't want to have this baby. And that, like I said, leads us to, as he gets more and more enraged, we sort of start to suspect that maybe he's responsible for some of these killings. So Jess carries us through the story, and it's mostly based in this sorority house with a sorority mother. She's really cool too. She's very kind of crazy, but they sort of look up to her, and she's responsible for taking care of them when their parents aren't there. And yeah, it leads to some trouble, but it takes us through the story of all of the characters as each of them kind of get ready to leave to go home for Christmas. But horrible, tragic things happen, and everybody kind of gets killed. And next we have Barb, the character, played by Margot Kidder, and she's absolutely fantastic in this role. She's this very mouthy, lippy, drunk that has asthma, and you would think that the asthma would hold her back, but it makes her even more kick-ass. But even so, she eventually gets killed by the killer, but it's in a real slasher style and really freaking scary. But once again, we don't see the actual killing happening. It's all implied. It's in a very dark room while she's sleeping, and you hear all of the noises and screams and whatnot. You get to see actually a little glimpse of the killer, just his eye, in a reflection, I think, and then in the crack of the doorway as well. So it's really, really, really freaky. Oh my God. We see the blood too, but like I say, it's largely implied, and you kind of use your imagination for what happens, and I think that makes it so incredibly scary. And next we have Mrs. Mchenry, played by Marion Waldman. She is the sorority house mother, and she's very cool. She's, she tries to be a really good mom figure to the girls, but in the background she's always really stressed out, and she's got all these little Mickeys of alcohol hidden all over the house, one in the back of the toilet. And the coolest is she has a book in the study in the library, and she's got one of those cutout books where the bottle fits inside of the book. And it's not actually a book. I have always wanted one of those. I think that's so cool. It totally reminds me of this film and makes me think of Christmas time. So what's crazy scary about her kill is she's just about to leave and grab a taxi, and she remembers the cat, and so she has to go looking for the cat. She goes into the attic, and of course she sees the first girl killed with a plastic bag over her head where she'd inhaled in the bag, and she's sitting in a chair. Oh, so scary. And she sees that and she freaks out, and then the killer gets her with a hook. So scary. Oh my God. One of the scariest scenes I think I've ever seen in a movie, but so good at the same time. And another gal is named Phil, and she's really good friends with Barb, who's played by Margot Kidder. And Phil's played by Andrea Martin, who I really love as well. And the character was supposed to be played by Gilda Radner, but Gilda, a month before shooting, actually had to do too much work for Saturday Night Live, so she had to bail on the whole thing. But it actually worked out really well because Andrea and Margot Kidder had like this really great chemistry together, so it kind of adds a nice element to the movie. Although Gilda Radner would have been really great in this role as well. I really liked her a lot. She was so good on SNL. Man, those were the best episodes way back when she was on there. That's for sure. Very sad that she's passed. But I think that Andrea Martin did a really good job in this as well. I love her too. And there was a small police crew that was on the job of hunting down this killer in this movie, and they all played really good roles as well. There was a Lieutenant Fuller played by John Saxon. He's really good. I remember him in lots of stuff back then. But very classic kind of roles for back in the day. Enjoyable, add a little humor to it as well. And then we have our killer, Billy, who's super creepy. We only really ever hear his voice. Oh, and then that little shot of his eye. But he's actually a combination of several actors. The director, Bob Clark, used his voice, and they also got actor Nick Mancuso to do it as well. And they would do things like record them upside down and add kinds of extra elements to give it that feel of someone who was, I don't know, possessed by the devil or had a split personality or something like that. Made it much, much more creepy. But like I say, we only ever really hear his voice throughout. And the police follow these crank calls to catch him, to figure out where he's at. And they realize he's in the house. He's upstairs in the house in the attic. Classic, right? One very sad and tragic thing from the film is that director Bob Clark was actually killed in a car crash with his son. He was 67 and killed by a drunk driver in Los Angeles. So that's pretty sad. It didn't happen during the film, obviously, but still very tragic. The story for this film was written by Roy Moore, who is a Canadian. And he was inspired by the urban legend of the babysitter with the man upstairs. And Bob Clark actually took the story and modified it somewhat so that they could adapt it into a film. And apparently this story was also inspired by a true case in Montreal where a 14-year-old boy murdered his entire family. So that's pretty crazy too. There were 2 remakes made, but I gotta tell you, this is the one to watch. I think this one's the good one. Oh, and I forgot to tell you that the part where you see Billy's eye, and actually the parts where the camera's kind of moving around and he's like stabbing people and killing people, that was actually modified and played by the cameraman at the same time. I find that so freaking cool. I love that. I think that's so well done for something like that. You think of like a, I don't know, independent film doing that kind of thing, and I don't think it would work, but wow, it works so well here. It's so creepy. And the ending is absolutely spectacular, where Jess is in the house, everybody's dead, and the cops are there, and Jess ends up killing Peter because they all think that Peter's the one that did it, and he's not. The killer's still in the house in the attic, and Jess is in shock. She's laying in the bed. They all think, oh, it's all solved, everything's finished, and they're just gonna let her rest. And she's sedated in the bed, and then we never actually see it happen, but we can assume that the killer gets Jess and kills Jess and everybody's dead. So scary. Such a good film. I really hope that if you haven't seen it yet that you'll go watch it. You can watch it on Tubi. I own it on DVD. Pretty easy to find, I'm sure. And if you do watch it, let me know in the comment section below what you think, or if you've seen it you know, maybe what you think about it as well. And I think for my review, I'm going to give this movie 5 shark bites out of 5 because I really, really love this movie. It's fun because it's a horror and it's at Christmas time too, so I love that kind of thing. It's a little different. And if you like this video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up because it helps me out a lot, and subscribe to the channel so you can see more movie reviews. And I'm going to be doing a new segment called Top 5. You're going to have to wait and see what that's all about. And I just wanted to say I absolutely love all of you. I'm so happy when you stop by and you chat with me. I love doing that. And I hope that you guys have a great rest of your evening, rest of your week, and I will chat with you again soon. Bye, guys.